Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. We're staying with the theme of devolution, which we started last week, because if you've been following the news, you'll know that we're marking the second anniversary of devolution. So today's guests are Senate Devolution Committee Chair Kipchumba Murkomen. He's the Senator for Elgeyo Marakwet. And from the National Assembly's Budget Committee, Dennis Waweru. And he's the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South. And before the break, Mr. Waweru, you had broken down the proposals from the National Assembly and from the Senate. Kipchumba, I'll now give you an opportunity to rebut that, because you were referring to the Constitution.
You see, I wanted to use this Constitution as a block. You have a block of bread, you know? Yes. Let's make it as simple as this.
Yes.
You have a super loaf or whatever bread. There are many bread. Yeah.
Yes.
Then you divide this bread into two. So the Constitution says when you're dividing the bread, at least 15% should go to counties. So in that division, they have a proposal. They are saying give 283. We are saying, oh, no, just add 7 billion to be 291, because the children at the local level will not be fed enough with 283. There is no other reference figure, yeah, that can tell you we are going to tax people extra, because you know what we are dividing is already what's projected of 1.2 trillion, yeah, which we want to raise. That amount being raised nationally, being divided between two levels of government, is what we are talking about. We haven't even talked about taxing yet. Then second, let me just come to this. Anyway, you will be taxed for the 1.2, whether it will go to the county or remain at national. The arguments that should be going on between national and county governments and the Senate and the National Assembly is that why is 7.7 billion more if National Assembly is saying? They say it's more because we want to fund roads with this amount, or want to fund security. The guiding star in division of revenue is the functions. Is the function schedule 4, part 1 and part 2. So you say in part 1, okay, no, 283 will be more, 291 will be more, because the functions of national government are blah, blah, blah. I would have expected Dennis to tell me if because of security challenges, we want to increase this year this amount of money. For us, we are arguing that because of the health challenges, and because 90% of the health facilities are being managed by the counties, except 2 referral hospitals in the country, we are saying let's put more money to the counties. That's why more money is going there to the health. Then you have this disaster management money. That's it. So, but the debate to say, oh, you will be taxed more, is scaremongering. You know, it's not about whether we are being taxed more or not.
You're telling us that our taxes will not go up, our mortgage rates will not increase.
Absolutely, unless they will not go up as a result of financing counties. If they have to go up, it will be other reasons by Parliament, which actually they are yet to pass budget. When they come out to the law of budget, they may want to add taxes or reduce, depending on whether you are going to achieve your policy decisions. Let's also add the fact that loans are basically collected and spent by national government for the national good. And as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that it is less useful if it's spent by national government. As long as those resources are divided equitably and devolved to the local level, there will be no problem.
You know, I have a lot of respect for Murkomen and his legal background and all these things. But this is about money. This is about estimates, expenditure, estimates that we get. This is what the government wants to spend, and this is how we are going to raise this revenue. So it's just a two-sided thing. So we are talking about the application and how the government is going to raise revenue. Raising revenue, Murkomen, one, there is ordinary revenue. That is taxation, excise duty, pay as you earn like you do pay. And then there is, say if you import a car, all this is ordinary revenue and duty. And then there is grants, loans and grants from our donors, our friends. And then there is the borrowing. So what fills the gap between the estimated revenue application, how much we are going to spend, what we balance with is the amount of money we are going to borrow. What Murkomen is trying to simply imply is that we are going now to borrow more by 7 billion shillings. And that is where we are saying that we need to make sure that we have a physical discipline that is supposed to be in an economy. And it should not be an argument of what level of government and where the application of funds is at. every level of government is serving the people of the Republic of Kenya. The national government also serves the same people that the county governments do serve. And so when the argument says that we want more money to the county governments, if you are not putting more money to even the functions of the national government, including security and education, are serving the same Kenyans at the lowest level possible. And so when we are trying to talk about where to apply or where to put resources to serve the people of the Republic of Kenya, we should remember even the President of the Republic of Kenya has an obligation to serve Kenyans at those levels up to the location level. And so the argument of this is something, and I like the argument of the difference between devolution
and transfers
to the county government, because we forget that devolution does not necessarily mean county governments, because even the national government is playing its role at the county level.
You know, I just wanted to
very quickly, so that we can move on to.
Yes. I mean, we have already buttressed this point too much. The thing I want to add is to just simply say that I have no problem with National Assembly making an argument that the 7 billion being given to the counties would have gone to education or security or something, and make those proposals. But to make a blanket, which is the case. No, I'm just saying they should be able to say, if we get the 7 billion to the counties, this sector will suffer. But to make blanket arguments that we don't want to more. No, I'm just saying, you are not saying this is the case when there is no clear.
That's what I'm saying.
Up to now, there is no clear provision as to the counter argument by National Assembly that the 7 billion will injure which sector. Because we are more than ready to be able to engage in that discussion.
And these are the same county
governments. But to
make
a blanket argument that...
these are the same county governments where we have issues, serious issues in the last financial year with absorption of funds. Where we have even had 40% in some of the county government absorption. So it's an issue of trying to colonize a certain provision of the budget just to safeguard a certain level, and then even implementation, absorption of these funds is an issue.
But absorption is a problem of both levels of government, so we can't really accuse one of them.
Right. Joe Odundo, in his message, sort of sets the tone for this. County budget allocations, if well managed, without corruption and unnecessary sitting allowances, more developments would come up. And so, speaking of which, corruption, because the devolution conference is underway, second day in Kisumu, strengthening devolution is part of the theme. What are we failing to appreciate about the fact that in addition to functions being devolved, corruption has also been devolved?
No,
precisely.
I totally agree with the argument that largely the bad manners of centralized system of government is rearing its head in the county level. The reason why people, and from the word go, I was among the people who say that corruption is taking root in the counties. And at that point in time, many Kenyans were saying we were fighting devolution. But nowadays, I don't even need to say, because every Kenyan is seeing what's happening. The reason why Kenyans went for devolution is, if you read Article 174, it says that you have a more transparent and people's government at the local level. The reason why devolution, corruption is thriving at the county is, one, is the corruption culture is part of Kenyan behavior. You will get a voter telling you, Senator, it's 2 years down the line, I hope you have accumulated enough wealth for yourself. Or you get sometimes former members of parliament being mocked by citizens, that where were you when men were grabbing land, when people were amassing wealth, where were you sleeping? So there is an accepted position almost in society that when you are in office, it's your time to save yourself, to eat. And that culture has also permeated the leaders at the county. They see that time is running out. That's the conversation we hear all the time. Time is running out. You need to make money for yourself very quickly. So there is a competition. I went to Wajir in part of our devolution visits, Wajir Mandera. And we were told in one of the places by a county commissioner that some of the challenges they're dealing with in security is because the MCAs are in danger because they are being pursued over contracts of county government. They are competing over contracts. If you hear some of the MCAs saying my life is in danger, it's because it's being pursued for a deal that gone sour. So you have that competition in the county, people wanting to eat, people giving their clans businesses, giving their cronies kickbacks, governors in most of their audited reports having more than 10 companies, using different proxies and being the ones who are giving, budgeting the money, giving the tenders and supervising the work. That conflict of interest is completely clear. You have MCAs and county assembly members that are struggling to take out the responsibility of oversight because there is a competition on one end for them to eat. There is the challenge of ability to accounting, public accounts committees in the counties and public investments committee having challenges appreciating their roles because of capacity building. And then you have on the other end citizens that do not know their role in terms of oversight in the county integrated development plan which they passed. So every time, they are happy to clap hands and say, this and that and so forth. And then finally, there is a one-man cronyism in the county that is cropping. You have everything. I saw you people, I saw in the newspapers yesterday, and that's something I'm going to ask you tomorrow in my presentation in Kisumu, is that you see newspaper adverts and pullouts writing that what governors have done for the counties, the achievements of governors. Devolution was remanded. Go and read Article 174. It was not supposed to be a one-man show. Sure. It was not. In any case, you go to meetings, and this is what I've told the MCAs. You go to a meeting with MCAs, a public baraza, and the MCA says, thank you, Governor, for doing the road. Thank you, Governor, for doing the hospital. Long live the Governor. Yet, the Constitution says that it is the people that work on the county integrated development plan. It is the county assembly that budgets and determines where the money will go. And they turn back and say it's a one-man syndrome. The other one is just a steward to ensure that that money is spent for what the reasons why people want it. So this culture, we must fight it. And when we fight it ferociously, it's not because we hate county governance. It's because Article 96 says that Senate will protect the counties. And when we make protecting the counties, it could be protecting from external attacks, which is external forces, but also there is the internal enemy, which is the county government officials.
I'll come to you.
And I think probably where we went wrong is some of the people who are giving this responsibility. You can imagine somebody you don't even know, even having experienced or even having ran a kiosk successfully, is being given a mandate to govern and spend 20 billion shillings annually.
In his assessment, Governor Kibwana called it strange bedfellows, ideologically and academically.
Yes.
And I guess what you're saying is experientially.
Yeah, and that's a major issue. Number two, more comment, and I want to add on to your point. Number two, big issue is that we even elected and gave responsibility to people who we don't even know what they stand for, who their character is questionable, who don't have anything to show like they had any managerial experience, and purely the mandate being given to a governor is purely managerial. Number three, we even allocated resources, and I'm sure, Mkomen, you agree with me. Even now, you are advocating that we should actually now give him more. We should give more resources to some of these characters, not having built enough capacity and structures at the county level. What we should be asking ourselves, and that's an argument I had in the budget committee, and I was telling my colleagues in the committee, now that we are devolving 283 billion shillings, how much money are we allocating to the Auditor General? How much money are we to increase capacity? How much money are we allocating extra to EACC so that they can be able to adequately and effectively oversight all these county governments? Because you must also increase the oversight capacity of, in fact, we even gave the governors some 1 billion shillings. We were very generous because we also felt it is important for us to give them the necessary resources to be able to oversight the county government, because the more money we allocate, the more structures we should build going forward. I want to pick up on the EACC because you've voted to send them home. Yeah.
They put out a list of shame. All levels of government officials were represented in that. What happens then?
I think we all know where we have come from. You know what has been happening in the last few weeks. And I want to appreciate and at this juncture say that we fully support the President and the Presidency in the fight against corruption. And what we are trying to do is to say, if you are not willing to fight corruption, if you are not, I know they talked about how much willingness do you have to fight corruption. If you have not prosecuted any case in the last 2-3 years, you cannot tell me that today, overnight, that you are going to order a person to fight corruption. What we are saying is, if you are not up to the task, you cannot be able to, you cannot continue.
So who are you referring to? Who are you referring to?
So EACC has been,
I'd like some clarity. Who you're referring to the EACC?
Kenyans, they have not been up to the task, and we feel we should have other Kenyans willing to serve the position and
what happens to the list of shame?
To be able to serve the
what happens to the list of shame?
Can we have a commission without commissioners? Because we have no commissioners now, but we have the secretariat. Minus the deputy, we have the chief executive staff. And no commissioner.
Let me answer that straight forward. Yes, you can have the commissioners, the secretariat working without the commission. The Act makes that clear separation, but also it's because of the conflict in the commission itself, because the fight for power between the secretariat headed by the CEO and the commission, it's not very clear in the Act itself, and Parliament should be able to provide for that. But let me come to the main issue. The reason why problem in this country now in this so-called fight against corruption is because of EACC. EACC has failed in one direction, in the fact that they have not taken over the leadership, the moral and the proper leadership on matters of anti-corruption. And let me put it this way. The reason why Kenyans are saying the president should fight corruption, it was not envisaged in the constitution that it would be the president to deal with the matters of fighting corruption. It's supposed to be the DPP and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And the constitution provided that independence of those institutions so that they can carry out that function. Investigations and then charging of those who are found culpable. And the cardinal principle in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, of our Constitution in terms of fight against corruption, is the presumption of innocence for everybody who is being investigated. Now, what AICC has done is that to hold investigations for more than 1 year, 2 years, as if they are holding or some kind of they are hoping that they can use it to intimidate people. We are even told that some of those purported investigations are actually agreed between the one who is complaining and the one who is bringing before there. So it remains for a long time for you to go use it for rent seeking. So you tell someone, you know, your name is in EACC. If you don't see me,
you know I have a file.
You know I have a file for you. Then it becomes a basis for rent seeking. Now, EACC has failed because they have exposed. Look at the names that are being given in public. There are those who are clearly culpable and were being charged. But why did it have to wait until the president put that list in public? Why were they not doing something? Why is it now? Why is it now that we are being promised in 2 weeks we'll have files going there? Did it have to until the president did what he did? Did we have to push the president to do things that were not expected of him in the constitution? It was supposed to be other institutions. So we have been failed, we have been exposed as a nation by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission not taking its mandate robustly and independently. That is why their character is being questioned, their competence, their capacity. And let me tell you, you can be removed in office. There is one American governor who was removed in office for general acts of incompetence. So you can actually be incompetent. You may not steal, but because of your incompetence becomes the basis of you going home.
Correct, correct.
You know, so that for me is the basis under which I have a lot of doubt about the capacity. Because you look at that list, some of the people are being told to step aside because of their preliminary investigations, or that so-and-so is related to so-and-so. Some be verified very fast to say that was there a conflict of interest here. It includes EACC protecting those whose names have been maligned innocently. That is their responsibility. They should have said, no, Mr. President, we have no list to give you because our independence requires us to do thorough investigations. We don't want to jeopardize by putting this list in public. We can only give you a list of the number of people we have concluded.
Having said that, and we seem to be agreeing on the competence and lack of passion was the term used in Parliament and when describing the EACC during the vetting process. What happens to the list of shame? Because you, Kipchumba, have just said there are people who are clearly culpable on that list, but there are also people who are there who are innocent, who have been falsely maligned, who have no business being there, whether or not of interest.
There is the safety.
And I think I do understand the frustration that the president is facing.
No, what happens to the list of shame? What happens to that list?
I'm getting to that. Because he's not in a position to be able to do as much as he would want. Maybe the maximum he can do currently is to tell you to step aside and hoping that EACC is going to investigate and maybe find out the truth. And there are some obvious cases that I have an issue with. For example, I have an issue with Konza because we have been taken round the circles. DPP trying to appoint a certain prosecutor, going round left, right and center. So we also have an issue with DPP because he has not been up to the task. And we are going to go forward. We are not going to stop at EACC. We are going to make sure that everybody who is supposed to play a role in fight against corruption is held accountable. Even judiciary, we have increased capacity in judiciary. You know, when President Kibaki came into power, the budget for the judiciary was around 4 or 5 billion shillings. Now we are talking about 18 billion shillings annually. You know, the budget for EACC, we increased. The capacity for Auditor General, we increased. And so what we are simply asking for is to perform their role, their constitutional role, and act, because the president has. Remember, these people have security, like EACC, and so we feel they need to do what they are supposed to do. On the list of shame, what we want and what we are asking is everybody who is mentioned should step aside. Number two, we are saying EACC Secretariat should proceed and prosecute, bring those people who have been mentioned to court and investigate.
Isn't there blockade?
Just a minute, hold on. Let's
and
before we
due
come to
process
DPP.
must be followed.
Due process must be followed.
Yeah.
But Kipchumba, you said there are people who are on that list who should not be on that list. Yeah. Is it fair to ask them to step aside?
It is not him to say.
No, I'm asking for his opinion. He's a lawyer. Yeah. We have established that the EACC was, which is why you're voting to send them home. Yeah. So can we trust their list of shame? No,
let me just put it this way. The credibility of EACC is damaging the credibility of their results. I mean, as long as the incompetence of EACC is established, then we will query the results of their action, either in terms of acquitting or in terms of finding people at fault. It will be definitely in doubt. And therefore, this gives a lot of responsibility to DPP to scrutinize the files that are going to be forwarded to him, because then the task becomes harder. And in fact, it's even far much harder for the DPP because there is public expectation that anybody who has been mentioned must be charged. And sometimes as a lawyer, you can't just wake up and charge people if there is no actually credible charges for culpability. It will be that you are playing to the public gallery. And as I said, and this is what Kenyans must appreciate. If we want to fight corruption properly, we must avoid mob justice and mass lynching. It must be that the innocence of the persons being mentioned must be kept, so that in future, if someone is say, okay, this person was innocent. If someone is found guilty, we now celebrate and say that we have a process that is working in this country. As my colleague Dennis has said, it is expected under the Act that the Secretariat will continue working. Of course, there's counter-accusations by the commissioners on the Secretariat as well, and then again, you know, that credibility issues are we are all worked. In fact, the more practical challenge...
Question, what happens to the list of shame?
That's what I'm saying.
For people who have already stepped aside, for people whose jobs are in jeopardy because they are on that list.
That's why I'm saying we just have to rely on the Secretariat and the DPP, because once the Secretariat finishes its work, they will have to forward those that they think. And let me come to the issue of stepping aside. Should people be told to step aside? For me, we credit the President for lifting the bar high, but under the law, the provision of the law only requires that people step aside when they are charged, you know, when they're finally charged. But what the President has taken is to lift the bar and the standard higher by requiring higher moral standards for everybody. And these are, as I said, and I've said before, these are rule of civility all over the world. If you are mentioned, you step aside. it is the standard that is international best practices, that people step aside and believe that if they are innocent, they will be able to be acquitted. Correct. The last thing is to say that if EACC is not going to provide a buffer zone for filtering what is true and what is false allegations, what will happen is that this process of corruption fighting will be used to derail county and national government functioning. Because if every time Mutegi walks to EACC and says, oh, I think my governor is corrupt, or I think the certain cabinet secretary is corrupt, and then they will be told to step aside, nothing will be done. And we must also protect the public servants that are running ministries that are full of controversies and big money projects. Because you have to make a decision, and every day you make a decision, it will always go, the other person who did not make business from that contract will always have a problem with you. So the balance must be struck.
There has been an issue with the Anti-Corruption Commission arguing they have no prosecutorial powers.
Which is true.
And there has been a problem. Them claiming, we've given a DPP these files, he has sat on them, and nothing happens. Isn't there a problem there, like you mentioned?
There's a bottleneck there.
Isn't there a problem?
For me, you can only, and I really, one thing I commend Tobiko is acting as a lawyer that he is. When you don't have the evidence, be bold enough and say, I'm not charging anybody. Don't play to public gallery. Because playing to public gallery does not help in dealing with the foundation. If a Kenyan is unhappy with DPP, and that's what many Kenyans have not realized, if you are unhappy with the decision of DPP not to prosecute anybody, you can institute what is called private prosecution.
You went and not prosecute?
No, null prosecution is no longer there under our constitution. So it was removed under the new constitution. So the thing that people must be able to take advantage is that if you question the ability of the DPP, or you doubt, or you think he has colluded with a particular person, we now have a right as Kenya to prosecute, or even other institutions like the Ombudsman's institution, other commissions can actually take up that challenge. But what's important for DPP is to stand his ground, not to engage in mass mob justice and mass lynching. Because if you do that, then the credibility of the people will never believe again. If you prosecute innocent people just for the sake of it, people will not believe the process of fighting corruption.
Okay.
But I think there is no excuse having two years we have not prosecuted even a single case. I mean, that's why we are asking.
The long-running
something is wrong.
We have, right?
Yeah, we have had, like I said, Konza. You find there is no will to prosecute on some cases, not even the current ones. And so when my brother here says that you have to have...
Or even politicians. There are politicians who have been supposed to be prosecuted because of utterances. Yeah. Then nothing happens.
Yeah. You know, as I said, other institutions under the law have been given the power to investigate, then forward the file to the DPP for prosecution. If the investigation is shoddy, you can't force the DPP to prosecute. But where there has been proper investigation, there is no reason why the DPP should not prosecute. The other thing that we must strengthen is the DPP office. We need to hire more prosecutors across the country so that they can take up many other corruption challenges that we are going to have, especially in the counties.
I think we have had to increase a lot of capacity, but I think what is lacking in this country is the will to do this.
Okay, this is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. We'll be back after this break with more reflections on corruption and devolution.